Welcome, you did great by clicking on this video. Today we're going to learn how to play chess from the very beginners. We're going to analyze how the pieces move and how we can set up the board so you can have fun with your friends. The problem of not knowing anything about the game, that's my issue and I'm here to help you out. Also, you need to take a look to this video completely so you can learn how to play chess. Remember to stay for the whole video so you can grab all of the information you need in order for you to play amazing chess. So we're gonna start by reviewing all of the pieces that we have on the board. As you can see, we have 8 pawns. These ones are pawns. We then have the rooks that are on the edge of the board. We have 2 rooks for white, 2 rooks for black. And black and white has 8 pawns. Then we can see the knights. They are placed on the second file from the left and from the right. Also we have the bishops. The bishops are placed in the third file, and then we have the queen, which is on D1 and D8. Also we have the king on E1 and E8. So in order for us to learn how to set up the board, we need to start by the very beginning here with the board in white. This one is actually the board without pieces, and for you to be able to understand how they need to be placed correctly, we need to verify the notation. So we have the notation here from A file to the H file. These ones are called files. So we have the A file, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. We have 8 files and we have 8 ranks, right? So each file and each rank has its own name. For example, the file from A is A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, and A8. Then we have the B, same thing, C, D, E, F, G, H, etc. So for the ranks, they're not called by the letters. That's only for the files that go upward. So for the ranks, we have numbers. Okay, so we have number 1, rank number 2, rank number 3, rank number 4. So at the beginning of the game, we're gonna place the pawns right in front on the second rank for white, and we're gonna place the pawns for black on the 7th rank so we can place the pieces correctly. So we have 8 pawns for white, 8 pawns for black. Then as you can see, from the A to the H file, we have 8 squares, right? And we also have 8 squares from a file. So that means that the board is 8 times 8 squares, right? So the very first rule you need to remember here is that when you place up the board, the square that goes to the right from the white player and to the right from the black player, there must be a white square. That's the very first rule you're going to learn today. So we know that the board has a white square on the right for white and also a white square for black on the right. So the board is set up correctly here, okay? Then we're going to put our rooks. The rooks are gonna go on the, so we're gonna place the rooks on the A file and also on the H file. Same thing for black. So as you can notice, white and black, they have the same army. They have the same pieces for you to fight with the opponent. So then we're gonna have the knights. This one goes for white on B1 and G1. B1 because it's the B file and the rank number 1. G1 because it's the G file and the rank number 1. So for black, we're gonna have the knight on B8 and also on G8. right? Simple as that. For white, the bishop is going to go on c1 and also on f1. For black, on c8 and also on f8. Then we're going to have the white queen on d1, the black's queen on d8. And the most important piece of the game is the king. The king goes for black on e8 and for white on e1. And that's it. We have just set up the board. Let's now continue to know how the pieces move. So now we're going to see how the pawns move, which is the first piece that we set up on the board. Let's grab some pawns from here. So the way these pawns move is they move forward and they eat the opponent pieces to the diagonals, to the sides. Okay, so the forward diagonal to the right and to the left. That's the way they take pieces or they eat pieces. However, the movement of this piece is going to be forward. Okay, so white and black can move the pawn 1 to 2 squares the first time they moving. Okay, so the first time for white they can move to d3 or they can move to d4 from the starting position. Okay, so black can move to d6 or it can move to d5. So the game is played by turns. First, white opens the game with a pawn movement. So d4, black continues the game with a pawn movement as well. d5. It's always recommended to move the pawns to the center so we can control these squares, which are really important for the game. So let's see. We're gonna put more pawns here to the board so we can verify how they move and how they can hit. Okay, we're gonna play here with the pawns: d4, d5, f3, f6. So as I said, the pawns can move 1 square or 2 squares in the first movement. So I can decide whether to go here e3 or whether to go e4, attacking the center immediately. I will choose to go e4. So I'm threatening to take on d5 here in the pawn, so black needs to take a decision whether to take the pawn on e4 or defend by playing e6. Let's play the pawn to e6. This way I need to take now a decision whether to move this pawn forward, move this pawn, or I can also take the pawn on d5. Remember that the pawns take on the right or the left with forward diagonals. Let's see. So I will decide to take, e takes d5, and then e6 takes d5 for black. I will go f4, and black will go f5. So as you know that the pawns move forward, these ones are stopping each other, and I can no longer move my pawns, nor black can move their pawns. So here we will be like some kind of stuck. Okay, perfect. Let's take a look to the other pieces, which are the rooks. The rooks, they move in line. Okay, so they make a line every time they move. For example, it could be horizontal or it could be vertical. So I can move through the file or I can move to the rank. But can the rooks move in diagonals? No, they cannot. They cannot move in diagonal. So here they can only move here, here, or through the file here. Okay, that's the way they move. Let's move it once. Now the black rook is sitting here, and as you see, the squares that the black rook can move to are some kind of limited. So he can move here, I can move here, and the rook will have this. Let's continue with the next piece, which is the knight. The knight move by doing an L. Okay, they draw an L for them to be able to move. Okay, so the L consists on 3 squares and 1 to the side. So 3 vertical squares and 1 to the side. Okay, so I can draw this L from down to upwards or to the sides. Okay, so the important thing is that you draw the L for the knight. So let's move the knight here. So it's 3 squares, 1 to the side. Black can move here, can move here, 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 here. Okay? So let's move the knight here. Now white can move here, can move here, can move here. Be careful because the L must be 3 squares and then 1 to the side. Okay? So the knights are known to be good pieces if they're placed on the center of the board. It's as simple as math to know the reason why. If the knight is sitting on e4 here and the black one on d5, the white one controls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. Also the black knight is going to control 8 squares. So that's the reason why the knights must be placed on the center so you can control more squares. And the more squares you control, the better your position is going to be for your pieces. Okay, let's take a look to another piece. Let's go with the bishops. We have a white bishop and a black bishop. If you noticed, white and black has one bishop on c1 and one bishop on f1, which are different colors. This is something to keep in mind. So, for example, the white bishop on c1 and the white bishop on f1. These ones cannot move in a different color where they are sitting at the beginning of the game. That means that they can only move in diagonals. Okay? Diagonals. They have no limit when moving. Okay? So the knight is really limited comparing to the bishop or the rook, that they didn't have a limit. Talking about the rook, talking about the knight. Now with the bishops in diagonals, out there starting color. Okay, this is the way they move. Let's move this one here, here. So I cannot step out of the white color for this bishop, nor black can do it. Okay. So let's keep playing. If you notice, these ones can never be opposite to each other because they're different color bishops. Perfect. So let's continue now with the queen. The queen is the strongest piece of the game. This piece controls so many squares and is known to be the strongest piece in chess. This one moves combining the rook and the bishop. That means that the queen can go as a rook, drawing a line to the right, to the left, upward, downward, or you can use it in diagonals too. Okay, the only limit for the queen is drawing an L as a knight. That's why the knight is so special, because the knight can never go in diagonal, nor file, nor rank. They need to draw an L. The queen cannot do that. However, if you see the board and the line that I just drawn here, that I have just drawn, the queen is really strong. Yes, so it controls so many squares. That's why it's known to be the strongest piece of the game. So let's continue here. The black queen goes on d8 and the white one on d1. How can we eat with these pieces? As I told you that the rooks and the knights and the bishops, they eat where they end up be sitting. Okay, so for example, the white queens, we know that it can move forward without limit, so I can take the black's queen by going to their square. So queen takes d8. Okay, that's the correct way. If I have a bishop here, I need to move first here, and if it doesn't move, if, for example, let's think that black has another piece and goes here, then I'll take the bishop. If the pawn comes here, I'll take the pawn. Yes? Okay, this is the way they eat, as well as the bishops, the knights, the rooks. Okay, so the bishop must end up where the other piece is sitting. Here, I just ate the rook. The knight is going to eat my bishop, and I'll eat the knight with my queen. That's the way they take pieces. Okay, let's continue with the most important piece of the game, which is the king. The king cannot be eaten. The king cannot be taken. The objective of the game is to checkmate the opponent's king. How do we checkmate him? We checkmate him by leaving the opponent's king without any route to escape. So they can never escape of the net that we are creating when attacking the king. So for example, these kings can get closer to each other, but here as you can see, the black kings controls e5, d5, and c5. Also, the white one is trying to control those squares. However, they cannot move closer to each other. Okay, they cannot, because the king cannot be taken nor eaten. So here, white will need to go here, black can come here as well. Okay, so let's try to set up the board again. Now you're gonna see that everything makes more sense. So the game starts with white moving. They can move e4, for example, d4. They can move c4, b4, a4, f4, a4, g3, h3, whatever move you want. However, grandmasters always recommend that you move in the pawn from the center of the board. Let's go with d4. So now is the turn for black. So if your friend is playing with you, they can play d5, which is a good move. If you know and take a look to this position, white is controlling e5 and also c5. Then we can develop our knights. It's here. Here I'm missing a knight. Okay, gonna develop the knight. Black develops the knight too. We're gonna develop the other knight. Black is gonna develop the other knight too. Gonna go bishop f4, e6, e3. Okay, so here we're just getting the pieces out of their starting squares, and now you're gonna see how we can take or we can eat the opponent's pieces. However, the objective of the game is going to be to checkmate the opponent's king. So, okay, this ends the game and black is winning here. White does not have anywhere to go because the h2 square is controlled by the rook. The g2 square is controlled by the king. The g1 square is controlled by the king. So the white king does not have anywhere to go. So black just won, yes? Okay, let's see another example with two rooks. Let's think that the king will go to c7 here. Rook e6, king b8, rook h7, rook a8. Here we have checkmate d1, rook e8 is checkmate. This rook is controlling this rank, and the other rook is controlling the 7th rank, so the white king is dead. Black has just won the game here, okay? So there's a difference here between checkmate and only check. Check is when we give an attack to the king, but the king can escape. The king can move forward to the side or block the check if he has still some piece. For example, that we took bishop d7. And here there's a special move, a special rule that I wanted to show you, which is castling. To castle is to bring the king to the corner of the board and move the other rook to the other side. This is the only time where the king can move 2 squares. Now we're gonna see how black needs to prepare to castle here, but he needs to bring the bishop out so this line is cleared up for the king to be able to castle. So let's go a4. Now black can castle here and bring the rook to f8 to the other side. That's the way the king is going to be able to castle. But here let me explain to you that there's a rule. There must not be any pieces like interceding with the king's movement in order for black to be able to castle. If there's a bishop here, black can take this bishop but cannot go up the bishop, so the bishop must be in another place, and there's got to be a clear line for the king to be able to castle. Another rule is that if I have a bishop here controlling these diagonals, the bishop is controlling f8, which is the the way the king needs to go through in order for him to be able to castle. So first, black will have to get rid of this bishop in order for black to be able to castle. Otherwise, it is an illegal move, okay? So black needs to take this, then I go here, and then you can castle. So king g8, and the rook goes to f8. So here let's go backward in time, and the king, let's imagine that the king is on e1. I'll go queen d2, queen c7 for example. Hold on. Okay. Alright. Bishop c7, and then white can castle long side. So the long castling means that the king is going to castle to the queen side. Which one is the queen side? The one that goes to the left side from white's perspective, and the king side is the right side from white's perspective. For black, the king side is his left, and the queen side is going to be his right. Okay, so the long castling consists on the king going to c1 and the rook goes to d1. That's why it's called the long castling. Same rules. There has to be no pieces from black interceding with the movement of the king when it was on d1 here. Okay, so here there's got to be no piece that intercedes here or just is getting in the way of the king in order for him to castle. Another rule here is that if the rook has moved, let's say that the rook has moved here, you lose your right to castle. Okay, so keep that in mind, that you cannot move the rooks, because if you move them, you're not going to be able to castle anymore. Okay, so instead you can immediately go here, from here to here, and the rook will pass to d1. Or you can also do short castling by going to g1, and the rook will come to f1. Alright, so that's the way some castling works. And also I wanted to show you something which is another rule here. Let me take this knight so you know how to take pieces. And we know that the pawns take on diagonal, so forward diagonals, b takes c6. Alright, perfect. Let me go here, g4, g6, g5. Okay, I wanted to show you another rule here. Yes, the pawn can take the knight, you're right. So, but I wanted to show you another rule here, that is the en passant rule. This rule consists that if black goes 2 squares ahead and white is in the 5th rank, or it could be opposite, that black is on the 5th rank and the opponent moves the pawn 2 squares forward, like ignoring this pawn here, you have the right to take this pawn by going to h6. This pawn will disappear. You have taken the pawn, and the king will come to h7. Then this pawn may fall. Yes. So as I was explaining here, if the pawn moves 2 squares, immediately you have the right to take. It's not forced. You can take the decision whether to take it or not. Here, if the pawn is on the 5th rank and black just went to h5, you can take by going g takes h6. Okay, and this pawn will disappear. You just have taken this pawn. Or you can take the decision of taking the knight on f6, which is another possible move for the pawn. So that should cover all of the rules for chess. If you know any other rule here, you can just write it down in the comments, and we can follow up. Also, I'll be making another video in regard to some specific advice that all of grandmasters give to all of our amazing beginner players. And of course, I'm also available in the chat if you want to verify some knowledge of chess. Okay, so do not hesitate to contact me on the comments. We can follow up on any rule, any way to play chess, and I hope you have a good one. Please subscribe. Take care.